Hey guys, here we're gonna go into Billy Joe Saunders versus Chris Eubank Jr. Film study. He's gonna be fighting David Lemieux, which is, I can't imagine it being a boring fight. And I haven't seen this whole fight. I've only seen the first couple rounds. I watched it once to kind of get a feel for a couple of things before I talk about it. But I don't know if this was a great fight either, but I do know that his fight with Willie Monroe Jr., who probably just came for a payday, was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. That's probably not even true, but, this year, like maybe compared to how great boxing was this year, it was just awful. It was just a horrible fight. Willie Monroe didn't even want to fight, it didn't look like. But that's not going to be the case with David Lemieux. That guy always comes to fight. He always comes to throw punches in bunches. And for the most part, he's got a really shitty defense. So he's going to be getting hit. He's going to be hitting. It's going to be a good time. So let's go ahead and get into some of the skills that I think we're going to do probably 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds of this to start out. I might do a second, like a part 2. But let's what we're going to be looking for is when Billy Joe Saunders lands punches, how he's landing those punches, if it's counter-punching style, if he's setting his punches up with feints and probes, or taking lead foot dominance, or how he defends himself after he punches, or how he defends himself once his opponent starts punching at him, how often he moves off the line, how active his guard is, the whole checklist of all the things that are important to be a really good fighter. And we're not necessarily going to grade him, but we're gonna put that stuff to the test and talk about how it affects his fight against David Lemieux with the film study that we already did on him fighting southpaws. We'll have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Billy Joe Saunders because he doesn't fucking knock people out. I don't know if he knows how to do that. So right away, showing, people say this might be defense, this might be, whatever. This is common sense. You don't get any fucking points for moving away from a punch that your opponent doesn't even set up. But coming in, now look at this, like right off the bat, Eubank Jr. started off with a hook, right? And one of the reasons why you want to note that is the trajectory of your jab when you're fighting southpaw versus orthodox kind of goes basically directly into your opponent's glove. And there are ways to mitigate that, and some of them include giving lead foot dominance to your opponent and stepping inside of their front foot so you can land their jab. So you'll step in and then you'll step back out. However, if your opponent tries to assert lead foot dominance or take a further deeper stance, when you try to walk out of that, sometimes you'll get tangled up, and if they throw any kind of punch and you fall down, that's a knockdown. So I think it's kind of risky. But it is important to note that Chris Eubank Jr. is not even looking to establish his jab, right? And then getting right into where Billy Joe Saunders goes from there, brings his hands up, and then immediately throws a jab that kind of cracks Chris Eubank Jr. in the face. But what do we notice from this? Chris Eubank Jr. is not even trying to defend the jab. He's not trying to catch it or block it or move. He's just trying to throw the left hook over the jab, right? Which is very common, right? Especially since I just told you one of the ways that you land it is by stepping on the inside of lead foot dominance. And that could pose like a huge problem, especially for a huge problem for Billy Joe Saunders, especially because we saw how David Lemieux knocks Guerrero out. I think it was Guerrero. Edwin Guerrero, I think that's what it was, in the last film study, is by throwing the right hook, right? So the first thing to notice, Billy Joe Saunders doesn't set this jab up at all. He doesn't do any probing. He has very little movement before. He brings his high guard up and then he brings his hands low. And he's got this really high frenetic energy feel about him that kind of does go in line with the having an active guard. But because he telegraphs his shot, right, by not setting it up, right, it's going to lead him to be very susceptible to that style of offense from David Lemieux unless he starts using his feints and his probes, right, and baiting out the counters. But I think that he does kind of figure that out from Chris Eubank Jr. later on. But notice how close this counter gets to him, right? I guess it's not that close, but still, like for the first punch thrown in the fight, basically, he has time to work on it, you know, throughout the course of the fight. But that's not exactly where you want to be with your offense. You don't want to have a dangerous offense where you're landing your punches and you're putting yourself in a dangerous position. God damn it! 5 minutes in, 8 seconds into the round. But now look at Billy Joe Saunders, his active guard now. I kind of like this from him, right? Very high frenetic pace, right? You don't really know what he's doing. Is he defending himself? Is he setting up a shot, right? And then he's got that like high tempo, and all of a sudden, boom, he's able to launch a jab out there because it's unpredictable, right? When you watch a fighter like Errol Spence, right? And no offense to Errol Spence, right? But he doesn't move his lead hand very often. His head is always in the same spot. And it's very predictable, right? It's very easy to see when his shots are coming, right? And even though I think that Errol Spence is a better fighter than Billy Joe Saunders, he has a more difficult time landing his punches or, you know, not being countered. As we saw in the Kell Brook fight, Kell Brook was able to counter him at will because he has no head movement. He has no active guard, right? That's one of the benefits of having an active guard. It also helps you control the distance between your opponent and you, so your opponent doesn't feel as comfortable moving into that range because they don't know if you're setting up for a shot, or they don't know if, you know, they just don't know. Also, they don't know if they can just explode out of their guard and throw a punch, because if you have, you know, an active guard, you're constantly moving your head or moving your gloves, and they never know where the opening is going to be, right? Because the opening is never in the same spot. Now, right there, Billy Joe Saunders, you know, doesn't react to this feint at all, right? Feints him, and he just brings his guard up. Then he feints him again, brings his guard up again, and he walks him into a jab to the body, right? It might be to the chest, right? Still a body shot. Might even been going for the chin. I don't really know. It's not important. It's just that it's important that Billy Joe Saunders is reacting to these shots. As we saw with David Lemieux, he's got like a kind of a triple jab, shuffle forward, and then he takes lead foot dominance and just starts pounding shots to the body or the head or whatever. So if he's not looking to contest this area, right? So notice how right away Chris Eubank Jr. feints him, and Billy Joe Saunders doesn't contest the space between them, right? He basically, by not reacting and only bringing his glove up, he says, okay, you can do whatever you want in that space to set up a shot, right? Chris Eubank Jr. could have went ham on him right here and throw like a huge right hand to the body, you know, just a whipping shot, and landed it to the body because Billy Joe Saunders is just allowing him to set up his punches. This is going to be something that is going to be terrible for him against a puncher like Lemieux. Just awful. So he's going to really need to work on this, and when his opponents start feinting, he's going to have to control the space between them when they start getting out of place by giving them a feint of his own, right? Changing head slots, right? You know, doing anything that he can, you know, maintaining an active guard to make your opponent feel less comfortable entering that space. I got to plug my laptop in real quick. Ugh. Man, 10 minutes. God damn it. I'll try to go a little bit quicker. So now Billy Joe Saunders got that, you know, active guard, but still just exploding out of his guard with that jab, right? And I'll try to watch. Actually, let's go ahead and try to watch this jab a few times and see if there's anything we can find out from his timing. You know, I'm not sure exactly if it's predicated on the lead left leg or his lead right leg, right? But he taps his foot on the ground a bunch of times. As you can see, he leans on his leg, leans, and then shoots a jab, you know. So it's not exactly a tell, right? But there might be like better angles that can more appropriately give us what we're looking for in terms of what we're looking for his punches. But after that jab, he looks to take an angle off, but doesn't control. He doesn't control Chris Eubank Jr. at all, right? And allows Chris Jr., even though he eats that shot, to get off a two-piece on him, right? The jab doesn't land, but the body shot looks like it might. And that's going to be something also very difficult for him to deal with against a big puncher like David Lemieux, who also showed that he liked to counter all of the jabs. He liked to counter like basically every punch that Edwin Guerrero, man, I hope that's his name, you guys. Don't grill me for it, because to be honest, who gives a shit, right? We're talking about film study, PC bullshit. I don't care. But anyway, some of the things that worked against Lemieux were not the jab, right? It wasn't super effective against him. In fact, that's what got his opponent into a lot of trouble. But it was actually the lead left hand. And I do think that there was a counter in there where, I don't know, we'll talk about that later. But again, Chris Eubank Jr. is showing that he's trying to counter over the jab. Misses this one again, right? But, and granted, it's only 30 seconds into the fight, but Billy Joe Saunders still not setting up his jab, right? So leans forward. You know, it's very slight. You know, he's got much less of a tell than a lot of fighters, right? But he's not feinting. He's not probing. He's not setting the shot up. And again, Chris Eubank, David Lemieux has a much better technique for slipping the jab and landing the counter too, because he turns all his weight into the shot. So just getting caught with one punch by David Lemieux could cost, you know, Billy Joe Saunders the fight if this is how he approaches his jabs, you know, not feinting and not probing. Although this is kind of a feint, right? He comes in, brings his high guard up like he might have been throwing a punch, and then comes in with basically the same rhythm and throws another jab. But Chris Eubank Jr. gets even closer with that counter this time than he did with the last one. And again, because he doesn't look to control him or take an angle off, he just moves straight back. Chris Eubank Jr. is able to land he misses the first shot, but because he's not controlling Chris Eubank Jr., he's not moving off the line, he's not taking any real defensive responsibility except avoiding the first hook, he's walking into this shot. Because Chris Eubank Jr. has already seen that Billy Joe Saunders is not really reacting to the counters very well. He's not doing anything after, right? Like moving off the line or controlling him, like I said. Again, same jab, right? Very dangerous offense for him against David Lemieux. Oh, and now here he goes with the probe, right? Starting to stick his lead hand out there. Maybe he's baiting. Oh, okay. And now he starts ducking down, and baiting the counters from him. Now, this is exactly what he needs to do against David Lemieux. You know, David Lemieux, for the most part, he absolutely got his ass beat by Golovkin, right? A lot of that had to do with the timing. But Golovkin is also very good at setting his punches up with the feints and the probes and walking his opponents into shots. And if this is something that this little sequence right here is something that he can get David Lemieux out of position and maybe land a couple of pot shots and move away, he could find a way to score against David Lemieux. Although one of the problems with countering with a huge puncher like David Lemieux is that if you don't anticipate every punch that he throws, you're eventually going to get caught with one, right? And all it takes from David Lemieux is one shot. He is an absolutely murderous puncher. But again, baiting the shot gets away from the first counter, and Chris Eubank Jr. with his terrible technique, look at how his right hand flies away from his face, lands a second shot, you know, and that's something that's going to be very dangerous for Billy Joe Saunders when he fights against David Lemieux again. You know, and look at his guard right now. Look at how tentative he is, right? He's moving it back and forth a lot, right? And it does kind of create like an air of control over the space between him and his opponent, right? Because, you know, maybe Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't feel all that comfortable going in there. He doesn't know exactly what's going on. He's trying to time him, right? So steps forward. Maybe he tries to time him right there while he's stepping back and adjusting his back leg so he can't punch back. But interesting that even in, you know, so far Billy Joe Saunders has led with the lead hand, right, jabbing at his opponent. I don't think he's thrown a single left hand, and it doesn't look like he's trying to counter, right, as he kind of eats this jab to the body, right, and then before Chris Eubank Jr. can get his hands back, he comes back with that jab, but he's not throwing it while Chris Eubank Jr. is jabbing, just while Chris Eubank Jr. is out of position from jabbing, right? There's like two different timings, right, where you time your opponent's jab while it's coming out and you counter, or you catch and counter style, right? Where after the punch hits you, or you catch it on your glove or wherever it went, you try to come back with a shot. So more in line with the catch and counter style. Again, not setting his jab up again. He knows that Chris Eubank Jr. is looking to counter off of that jab, but he's still not setting it up, right? And it's interesting too, because why is Chris Eubank Jr. not having more success with his counter, right? If his opponent's not setting it up at all. Maybe Billy Joe Saunders is that quick. He doesn't look super quick here, but he does look like he has like a really interesting timing. Again, right here, like how his guard is really quick. Shows him a different angle right here, but it doesn't even phase Eubank Jr. at all. And again, look at this. This is not good, right? Shoots in, right? Puts all his weight on his lead leg, and then has to jump back. How's he getting away from counters from David Lemieux? And again, after he shoots that jab, no control onto Chris Eubank Jr. He's able to come back with another shot and then throw the 2 to the body right there with no recourse. Billy Joe Saunders doesn't even look like he's trying to counter at all. I wonder what Billy Joe Saunders' idea of offense even is for this fight. Goes to the body. And this is interesting, right? Because it's while Chris Eubank Jr. is out of position. Right, but look at how he lands this jab. Remember, I was telling you guys earlier, he steps in between, right? So he gives away lead foot dominance, and I'm not sure why Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't just slug it out, right? Because we already know how Billy Joe Saunders is going to leave the exchange straight back, right? Which is going to cause him a lot of problems, especially against a big puncher like David Lemieux. Billy Joe Saunders is really going to need to be on his game for this fight. Good active guard here, and it looks stupid, right? And I had some commenters in another video say that all this movement is a waste of time or a waste of energy, And those are like the Guillermo Rigondeaux fans that, to be honest, like, I'm not sure that they, everyone watches boxing, right? If you're watching my videos, you watch boxing, right? But everyone who subscribe, you guys are the ones that study boxing, right? And look to understand what's going on, not just what you see, right? That there's so much setup, there's so much, so much cerebral stuff that goes on into it that it's not, you can't just get away with playing checkers with your opponent where everything that you do is honest, right? And Guillermo Rigondeaux has a very honest style of boxing, and it looks like he expects an honest style of boxing back from his opponent. A lot of people think like Sean Porter, man. I guess I'll talk about this little like, no, I'm not going to talk about it. I love Sean Porter, man, but the media is fucking ruining him, you guys. He's a very good fighter, but that Adrian Granados fight, everyone calling him a dirty fighter and this and that, like Paulie Malignaggi, that salty-ass little bitch, grow the fuck up, man. He fucking beat your ass fair and square. Why are you going to fucking cry and tarnish his fucking thing just because he doesn't box like Floyd Mayweather? How many fucking Floyd Mayweathers do we fucking want? Right? Do we all just want to be fucking watching Floyd Mayweather all the fucking time? How fun would it be to watch Floyd Mayweather fight Floyd Mayweather? Who the fuck would even win that fight, right? Is that a draw? Is the one promoted by Oscar De La Hoya the one that's going to win? Like, what is it, right? Would you even care who won that fight? Like, if you had to watch it too, guys? Come on. How many of these stale-ass fighters do we want? And we talk shit and degrade about, fighters who have a different style, a unique style. Football player, my ass. He's just an athlete. Y'all don't know shit about boxing, man. Fuck you, Polly. Quit watching my fucking videos, too, bitch. So, again, like, look at the Billy Joe Saunders, right? So, look at how sideways he is, right? And I don't really think that you should be standing this sideways, like how his feet are basically all in a line, right? And he turns away from this shot, right? And he's able to come back with some jabs and stuff, right? But he gets, it looks like he's going to be stuck here, as soon as, now this might be interesting too, right? So as soon as David Lemieux starts throwing those triple jabs and taking lead foot dominance, Billy Joe Saunders could basically just turn his back on David Lemieux, and the referee would have to stop the action, because look at how far away he's turned away from his opponent, and it's just a right hand. You know, sure, he's stepping with it, right, to take lead foot dominance, right? But I don't know. It's just there's no reason to move that far away, and he's not even in position. You know, maybe Billy Joe Saunders has a broken left hand, right? I don't know. You know, but he couldn't even come back with over the top with the straight left hand. He goes back straight with the jabs, right? You know, and good job for him, like landing the shot, right? But I just don't see that as being like a very effective style of offense against David Lemieux, right? But anyway, coming in, and this is really interesting, right? So he shoots this jab, right? And then kind of circles out. But look at how he's completely out of position, right? Shoots the jab. Maybe his foot gets stuck on Chris Eubank Jr.'s real quick, right? But he shoots the jab, and for some reason, he's putting all his weight on his front leg in the first place, right? And this is not how you throw a jab, you guys. Especially when you step with it, you know. And my bad about the boxing videos. I was trying to make them. You know, I got my friends together a couple times, and the camera ran out of juice, and I wasn't being super responsible. And then the last time we got together, man, I straight up just lost my fucking camera, yo. I think it's in my fucking car, man, but I don't know. I'll have to look for that shit. But when you step with your jab, right, don't ever lean into your jab. And this right here is exactly why I think that David Lemieux is going to smash Billy Joe Saunders. If he ever gets complacent with stepping with his jab like this, he's going to eat a cross, or he's going to eat a left hook from David Lemieux. And David Lemieux is a huge power puncher with his left hand. I think he probably is left-handed, but he fights orthodox. But I don't know. But he has a huge left hook, and if he leans in with this shot, with this jab like this, David Lemieux, as we saw against his last fight, or his last southpaw fighter in my film study, he has a huge left hook, and he really knows how to get power into it and land the shot against this. But when you throw your jab like this, especially when you step with it, you don't want to be on the front of you don't want to be on your toes, right? For all the fighters out there, whenever you shoot your jab, keep all the weight on your left leg in your heel. You know, don't ever put it into your front leg or into your toes, right? Because it's going to put you off balance. You're going to bring your back leg up off the ground, right? You want your back toes up, and you want your heel on the ground for your front foot, and you want to be on your toes on your back foot. And kind of, you know, if you want to practice, lift your toes up a little while you practice throwing your jab. It'll stop you from leaning into the shot and kind of falling into your shot like Billy Joe Saunders does right here. And then even worse, when he falls in, when he tries to duck the counter that he knows that Chris Eubank is throwing, all he can do is kind of, and I think we're going to fucking dub this, poor guy, we're going to dub this the Lubin. Right, he does the Lubin and kind of falls into a shot right there. He does block it because, unlike Lubin, he has his glove up, right? But he has nowhere to go because he's off balance and he doesn't move off the line correctly. And as you can see, when all of his weight is on his front leg, when he pivots to turn out, his head doesn't come with him. His body doesn't come with him. But anyway, moving on. God damn it, 23 minutes. My bad, guys. Now, pretty decent job right there, shooting that shot and then controlling Chris Eubank with his forearm right there, so he can turn and pivot and get off the line and get out of the, I don't want to say corner, right, but being cornered against the ropes. Then comes right into it, shoots that kind of lazy jab, right? But it's not a lazy jab, it's a probing shot. But why is he probing if he's not going to react to what Chris Eubank Jr. gives him, right? So part of the theory behind probing, right, is you get your opponent to react. So now because he didn't commit to this jab, right, he just paused out there, he can do anything he wants. He's not committed to any motion. He could just lay into a right hook right here, or a straight left hand as Chris Eubank Jr. comes in with no defense. His hands are both low, but for some reason, Billy Joe Saunders is not looking to set up any shots. Now, we're not going to talk, well, I guess we will talk a little bit about this while he's on the ropes, because it is going to be an important part of the fight between him and David Lemieux. So, he's able to kind of bull rush him onto the ropes. I don't think that Lemieux will use the same exact tactic. But let's look for defensive strategies of Billy Joe Saunders. So far, he 8-2 uppercuts. He's throwing a wide right hook, or left hook. And he does look to turn out. But after he gets off the ropes, for some reason, he stays there. You know, and lets Chris Eubank Jr. get back in there. He eats another right uppercut. And then after that, you know, Chris Eubank Jr. lets him off the ropes. You know, not a lot of great work there. And it's interesting because, let me go back and rewatch that, because I think the commentators said that Billy Joe Saunders did better work on the ropes there than Chris Eubank did. And it doesn't look like Chris Eubank Jr. Billy Joe Saunders lands any fucking punches. I think he lands 1 to 3. So really interesting from the commentators. Probably very biased. No offense, Box Nation. Don't hit me with that copyright jam, yo. But now Billy Joe Saunders pressing forward, right? He's got that kind of like active guard again, right? Leaning forward, his hands are moving a lot. Up, down, shoots the jab. Very predictable. Up, up. He's flashing that lead hand. Changing levels. Oh, and then he throws a left hand. Ooh, now this is exactly why you always want to set your punches up, guys. So Chris Eubank Jr. not using any feints or probes. And look at this idiot. You know, no offense, Chris Eubank, but you're not a fucking boxing prodigy, man. You ain't, like, all that shit Roy Jones Jr. did, man, that was bullshit. You know, that's not real fucking boxing. I'm sorry to all you Roy Jones Jr. fans. But you don't get to just fucking stand in front of your opponent frozen like a fucking statue and then explode out of your guard like you're going to knock him out. Like you're some fucking boxing virtuoso. That's garbage. So anyway, standing there like a clown, shoots his jab, blocks the left hand counter, but boom, eats the right hand cross over the top. And that's what you get. That's what you get for standing there like that. You deserve to lose the round just for that, Chris Eubank. But interesting. So the only new wrinkle in that is Chris Eubank Jr. or is Billy Joe Saunders countering the jab from Chris Eubank with the straight left right cross. Right now, we'll see if he uses this very often. Right, I wonder what made him decide that was going to be a part of his offense. Ooh, there he goes. So feints him, gets him to commit to the shot, and then almost walks him into a jab for some reason, and doesn't land it actually, and then still eats a body shot. You know, not the cleanest body shot, right? But I guess it is a clean shot. And then controls his head. You know, at least that's smart. You know, that's something that he's definitely going to need to do against David Lemieux, right? So notice how, for those of you that are new to it, right? Notice how he misses the jab, but he gets his forearm onto his head and he doesn't let go, and he pushes him off balance, right? Dirty fighting, dirty boxing, right? If you were training a fighter and you saw your fighter do that, I 100% tell you, you'd be like, yeah, man, you didn't eat a huge left hook, man. Good job. You know, you didn't get dropped and lose the fight. You didn't get knocked out. Good job, right? So control their head so you don't eat huge punches. He does move off the line like a little bit right there and does like a good job changing angles on him. There you go. And now when he misses this jab, controlling Chris Eubank Jr.'s head again. And then this is going to be something he has to watch out for. Holding his head and trying to hit him. We'll see how often he does that. I don't think that'll be an issue versus David Lemieux. All right. And again, you know, not like, you know, common sense defense, right? And how does he eat this jab right here? Boom. So Chris Eubank totally owns him right there. So he stands in front of him, changes levels, and then slightly moves up as Billy Joe Saunders changes levels and walks him into a jab. You know, pretty clever. I like that, Chris Eubank. You get a little bit of respect from that, back from just standing in front of him like a clown, which was so stupid. Come on, you dummy. Let's see what highlights they got. Oh, nothing. Oh, this is the round. Ha ha ha. Okay, so round 2. We'll do 2 rounds. I'll see if I can get through this round in less than 10 minutes. So now people talk. Just watch this first 10 seconds, right? Look at the tentativeness. This is tentativeness. This is not technical boxing, you guys. These fucking idiots are standing in front of each other doing nothing. This is not a technical bout. This is not a technical match. That is not what technical means. Anybody who stands in front of their opponent not throwing punches they're not doing it because they're fighting a technical fight. They're doing that because they don't know what the fuck to do. Okay? It's not a sign of prowess. It's a sign of inexperience or inability. So let's go ahead and get back. So feinting, giving him a couple feints, you know, and it's interesting because Chris Eubank Jr. he's not even reacting to these feints, right? You know, slightly twitching, right? You know, giving him a couple twitches, has his hands low, right? He's in the same guard, right? He's not moving his head. And as you notice, look at how close that comes. Maybe it doesn't come as close as I thought it did originally. Okay, he throws it pretty quick. Yeah, man, that's pretty fucking close, right? Because Chris Eubank Jr. is not using any head movement. Now, I'm not saying that I think that David Lemieux is going to have head movement. I don't know, right? But he does have, like, you know, a mildly active guard in the first round of that fight, all the way up until he realizes he only wants to counterpunch, and he stops moving his head. And that might be a strategy for him baiting shots from his opponent, or maybe he'll do that with Billy Joe Saunders, right? But look at how Billy Joe Saunders reacts after he misses that shot. He just moves straight back, right? High guard, feinting him. High guard, steps in, shoots the jab, and again, not really setting it up, right? Chris Eubank Jr. hasn't been reacting. He's been waiting for the real shot, and then he does finally go to throw it, but Chris Eubank Jr. cracks him with the shot. Now, I wonder what the real tell is. You know, with, let's go back. I don't know. I can't really see it. I wish I could see their feet better. But he times him perfectly on that one. And this is like the difference between the two counters, right? So he doesn't wait for this shot to land before he starts throwing it, right? He's throwing it before it lands, right? Versus the style that, or the timing of it that Billy Joe Saunders was trying to catch him while he has his hands down after he punches. But a shot like that from David Lemieux and Billy Joe Saunders is out, and the fight's over. So far I'm having a hard time thinking that I think that Billy Joe Saunders could beat him. You know, again, not the greatest feints, right? Shuffling down and then walks right into a jab from him, you know. And again, you know, I'm not sure. Chris Eubank Jr. is not the greatest fighter either, right? So it's a little difficult to gauge exactly what he's thinking against, like, Chris Eubank Jr. Maybe Chris Eubank Jr. is doing some unorthodox stuff in there. I don't know. But, again, not setting the shot up and almost winging right into that left hook. There you go. There's a good feint. Feints him with the jab. He goes to counter with the left hook, but he shoots the left hand to the body. That's a great shot. And it's like basically on the liver, right? Boom. Good shot. Walks him into it and uses good head movement, right? He changes head slots as he's throwing it so that Chris Eubank Jr. misses with his counter. And I wonder why it took him the whole first round to start moving into this, right? Makes you wonder, like, oh, is this something that his coach is telling him, right? And his coach is like, hey, you need to do this. Is he not able to think for himself, right? In the actual fight? I'm not sure. Getting under the jab. Now, Chris Eubank Jr. getting control. Now, this is exactly what Billy Joe Saunders needs to do when he misses those jabs, right? When Chris Eubank throws those jabs, or when Billy Joe Saunders throws those jabs and David Lemieux is looking to counter. He needs to control his head, right? Pull it down or do whatever he needs to do to stop him from landing those counters. And I think that one still lands. I'm not sure. But he needs to do probably a little bit better of a job. Does he even move off the line? No, only after he gets hit. And again, tentative, right? You know, he's pawing with the lead hand. Doesn't feel comfortable throwing it. And he's able to bait him into it, you know. But for some reason, I'm not sure, like, what Chris Eubank Jr.'s, like, strategy is at this point. Like, I don't know what he's trying to do. Doesn't look like he knows what he's trying to do either, to be honest. He's doing a lot of standing around. But, pawing, and he gets Chris Eubank Jr. to go first and counters him with a decent jab. Not bad. Again, I don't think that that's something he should do with Lemieux. So it changes levels. And then does he change levels and land a left hand again? Can't really tell from this angle. Does look like he lands a left hand though. I'm not sure if it's to the head or if it's to the body or what. But the lead left hand is something that was definitely very good against David Lemieux. And I would recommend using the lead left hand. Especially if he's able to get his head off the line and away from the counter left hook. Oh, and again, you know, shooting that jab. Eubank Jr., does he eat it? Does he just eat the jab and then land the hook? Looks like it comes just shy, and he's barely able to land the hook. But interesting, like if you look at this style of defense from him, right? He's giving him the Lubin. You know, if Chris Eubank is able to follow this up and land a right hand, you know, he could really hurt Billy Joe Saunders. You know, and I definitely think that Lemieux will. You know, I think that there are definitely some opportunities in there where Lemieux counters with the left and then throws a right after. Again, not really setting the shot up. You know, and this high guard feint, you know, it's not the same as throwing a jab. You know, especially if he goes high guard, low, and then goes high guard, and then shoots the jab. You know, maybe that's a tell, right? And that'll be something I look for from now on. There you go. How does he know that he's going to shoot that second jab, though? Ducks it, lands a good left to the body. I'm a fan of that. I like that shot. It's really interesting because Chris Eubank Jr. hasn't been leading at all. And then the first time he does, he eats another body shot. You know, maybe that's why. Is Billy Joe Saunders normally a counterpuncher? Maybe that's the deal. You know, I don't know anything about Billy Joe Saunders. I don't watch his fights, and after the Willie Monroe fight, if he fought anybody else other than the Charlo brothers, David Lemieux, or Golovkin-Canelo, I wouldn't watch it. I wouldn't give a shit. Although there is one other heavyweight, or one other middleweight that's a pretty big deal right now. He's like 12-0 or 13-0 with like all knockouts, I think. Maybe that's a different division. I don't know. But anyway, again, not setting any of these shots up, right? And I wonder what he's thinking. I wonder, you know, why Eubank isn't throwing that counter left hook, right? And granted, it hasn't been the most successful, but it hasn't allowed him to throw triple jabs like this, right? Because he counters, because he controls the distance with his counter, it doesn't allow Billy Joe Saunders to throw multiple punches because he has to be worried about what's coming back at him. You know, and while I think that that's a shitty way to control the distance between you and your opponent, it is effective, right, against lower level fighters. There you go, baiting the feint. And then huge feint from him. Gets Billy Joe Saunders. Look at how Billy Joe Saunders defends himself. He just moves straight back in a line. All his weight on his back leg. He can't pivot or turn or do anything. And just eats a body shot right there. Oh, shit! And then walks right into that huge left hook. So what happens with that? Shoots that jab. Okay, it's just the same exact shot. He shoots a jab and gets countered over the top of it. Again, something, and this is really interesting too because David Lemieux likes to pressure as well. And if Billy Joe Saunders' response to pressure is to flick his jab out there, I definitely think he's going to walk into a big shot from David Lemieux. So far, it's not looking great for Billy Joe Saunders, to be honest. Not really great at countering, not really great at setting his shots up, although he's doing a decent job here. So, probing, and interesting, right? When he starts sticking his lead hand out there, Chris Eubank does the right thing, right? Man, fuck these guys with 3 goddamn names. Does the right thing. Chris, I feel weird calling him Chris. Chris paws away the jab, paws away the lead hand with his own lead hand to stop Billy Joe Saunders from having control of the distance, right? Doesn't do anything with this one, and Billy Joe Saunders is able to control his lead hand and then feint him. But, again, he feints, right? Chris brings his guard up. He knows that the left hand is coming, so he feints him again and then throws the exact same fucking punch that he just showed he was ready for, and he blocks it in the exact same way. I don't know. You know, not the greatest offense from Billy Joe Saunders so far. Leading or following. Oh, man. Misses that shot, puts all his weight on his back leg. I wonder why Chris Eubank is staying there, you know. And this is one of the problems with transferring your weight, right? So look at how, after he throws this shot, he's on his toes for both of his feet, right? Just, you know, quickly looking over it. One of his heels needs to be on the ground, and it's his right heel, right? So after he throws that left hook, he needs to plant his right heel so that he can allow all of his weight to transition as he rotates back and away from his opponent, right? But he stays out there because he's on his toes, just like Billy Joe Saunders was doing earlier when he had all his weight on his toes after that jab, and then winds up almost walking into a big shot, you know? And, you know, kind of dirty right here when Eubank puts his head down and he holds his head down to start throwing shots. You know, luckily it doesn't turn into anything for Billy Joe Saunders, but it's definitely not exactly how you want to be controlling your opponent. You can do it from the side of the head, whatever. And I can't really tell what's going on there, so I'm not going to break it down. Billy Joe Saunders fighting like shit on the inside, right? He's got his guard up while he's allowing himself to be tied up, and he's not looking to tie up the other hand, and almost eats an uppercut. Not the super smartest. The underhooks on him. I don't know why he's talking to Chris Eubank. Probably from the holding, but how can he even see it from that angle? I don't know. Feinting again. And then when he finally gets his opponent to react to the feint, notice he doesn't do anything, right? So these are not probes from Billy Joe Saunders. He's just feeling his opponent out, right? Looking to figure out what he's going to do when he does that. But he's not looking to make Chris Eubank pay for that action, pay for that mistake, right? For getting himself out of position. Let's look at Chris Eubank when he steps with this jab. Yeah, look at how he steps with this jab. Brings his heel all the way up off the ground, and he's leaning in on that shot as he moves away. Very shitty technique, to be honest. He needs to work on that and keep his heel down, right? On his or keep his foot on the ground so he can at least come back with a right hand. But let's get through this last 24 seconds. Again, Billy Joe Saunders, you know, with this faux active guard, right? He's moving his hands, shaking them all over the place. But it's not really effective. He's not really even psyching Eubank Jr. out. And doesn't make him pay for countering those shots either. You know, it's really interesting. So he's not setting his shots up well. He's not looking to counter Chris Eubank Jr. It's really interesting. Again, he knows how Chris Eubank Jr. is going to react to these shots, right? So why doesn't he set up a trap for him, right? What is when he flick that hand out there and then duck again and throw the left hand to the body? Why did he move away from that, right? What does that tell you about somebody like Billy Joe Saunders, right? He's like, oh, I already tackled that problem. I solved it once with the body shot. Let's solve it a different way, right? I don't know. Very puzzling to me. You know, I'm not exactly sure. You know, maybe Billy Joe Saunders didn't even see what he did. He didn't even realize he did something well. But interestingly enough, I think most people gave Billy Joe Saunders both of these first 2 rounds. I don't know. But it didn't really look to me like he won the first round, at least. To be honest, I didn't really score the second. But interestingly enough, it looks like Billy Joe Saunders is going to have a lot of fucking problems with David Lemieux, to be really flatly honest. And I couldn't even believe this fight got signed when it did, because David Lemieux is such a good fighter. You know, he's not a great fighter, right? But he's a good fighter. He's action-packed, always fun, you know, always fun to watch. And he hits like a truck, you know. And Billy Joe Saunders has shown that he doesn't know how to move away from punches. He doesn't turn off. He doesn't move off the line. He doesn't control you. He doesn't know how to bait counters super well. Like, he did it a few times in this round, but he doesn't know how to set traps off of them. So as long as you're still just allowing your opponent to counter every punch without making you pay for them, you don't have any incentive to move away from those counters. And those counters stop your opponent from setting their punches up at all, which takes away all of your offense. So if you're not safe to throw your punches, and you're not particularly good at counter punching, where are you going to land any punches? How are you going to score to win rounds? You know, I don't know. Very curious. You know, so Billy Joe Saunders needs to work on his jab technique so he doesn't walk into that huge left hook of Lemieux. And he also needs to work on baiting that hook. You know, because if Lemieux fights him in any way that he fought that other guy, who looks like a way better fighter than Billy Joe Saunders. The only thing Billy Joe Saunders has going for him is that kind of faux active guard, right? Where he's moving his hands real quick, you know, shuffling, you know, making it look like he's doing something, or making it look like he's occupying the space between him and his opponent. And that can create hesitation, you know. Part of the ways that you control the space between you and your opponent is with your lead hand, is with your feints and your probes, and having an active guard, you know, so your opponent is not able to predict exactly what you're going to be able to do, so they don't know what they're going to be able to do, and you're able to stop your opponent from engaging you at all. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And again, thanks for all the support, you guys. I really appreciate all the comments and stuff, and the fact that people actually watch this shit. And yeah, thanks, guys.